In this video, we're going to take a look at dividing rational numbers. We've already looked at how to add rational numbers, subtract rational numbers, and multiply rational numbers. Now we're going to take a look at dividing rational numbers. To begin with, before we introduce positive and negative signs, which we will do at the very end of this video, which follow basically the same rules as dividing the integers that we covered about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. When we look at dividing rational numbers, I'm going to break into reviewing how to divide decimals and how to divide fractions. I'm going to begin with fractions because fractions I think are also a little bit easier. When dividing fractions, what we need to keep in mind is the rule keep, change, flip. Or as some of my students remember from last year, this can also be the KCF rule. Some people like to think of it as KFC, just KCF instead. So when I divide fractions, so for example, if I gave you something like 3/4 divided by maybe 7/8, okay? This keep, change, flip rule means that I keep the 3/4, I flip or change the division to multiplication, and then I flip the 7/8 to become 8/7. I flip that fraction. Okay, this is what's called the reciprocal. Basically, that I flip that fraction. What's on the bottom becomes on the top. What's on the top becomes on the bottom. And then when I look at this problem here, it's the same multiplication. Okay, it's the same rule as multiplying fractions. So if I want to simplify before I multiply, because it generally is a little bit easier. Okay, what I'm going to do is 4 and 8 are both divisible by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1. 8 divided by 4 is 2. Then I multiply across the top. 3 times 2 is 6. 1 times 7 is 7. So my answer is 6/7. Okay. One little complication, okay, or one little problem or question to address deals with what happens if I have a mixed number. So let's change this problem that instead of doing 3/4 divided by 7/8, let's do 3/4 divided by 1 and 1/8. Okay, just like multiplication, I do need to change this mixed number into an improper fraction. And I do that before I try to flip it or do anything else. So I do 3/4 divided by, this would be 9/8. And then it operates with the KCF rule, the keep, change, flip rule. So I'm going to keep the 3/4. I'm going to change the division to multiplication. And then I am going to flip the 9/8 to be 8/9. After this, I'm going to simplify. So once again, 4 divided by 4 is 1, 8 divided by 4 is 2. Now I can also simplify the 3 and the 9. 3 divided by 3 is 1, 9 divided by 3 is 3. So when I do 1 times 2, I get 2. 1 times 3 is 3. So this is my answer. So hopefully this has been helpful when looking at how to divide fractions. When I look at dividing decimals, okay, the key part is you must divide by a whole number. Okay, so if I want to know what 14.24 is when divided by 3, I can divide this just like normal. 3, okay, the 14.24 goes underneath the division sign. The 3 goes outside. 3 goes into 1 0 times. Okay, so you can write the 0 there just as a placeholder. 3 goes into 14 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. Subtract the 12. Left with 2. Bring down the 2. 3 goes into 22 7 times. 7 times 3 is 21. Subtract the 1. Bring down the 4. 3 goes into 14 4 times. 4 times 3 is 12. Subtract, I get 2. Okay. At this point, I still have a remainder, so I want to put a 0. Bring down the 0. 3 goes into 20. 6 times, I'm left with 18. Subtract, get a 2. I could add another 0. Bring it down, 0. Okay, and at this point, because I'm going to keep getting 6, it's going to be 6 repeated. Okay. But the key part here is to look and say, you know what, where is the decimal? I need to bring the decimal place up. So my answer will be 4.746 repeated. Does this make sense? If I were to round 14.24 divided by 3, let's pretend it's 15 divided by 3. My answer should be just under where 5 is. Okay, because 15 divided by 3 is 5, so 14.24 divided by 3 will be just under 5. Okay, so the key part here is to remember that wherever my decimal is located, I bring it up. Now let's go ahead and change this problem a little bit. Let's say it was 14.24 divided by 0.3. So if I set it up, I put the decimal point 3 out on the outside, 14.24 on the inside. The problem is, remember that I must divide by a whole number. Is 3/10 a whole number? No, it's not. So I need to do something to adapt to change this. So what we need to almost think about this is think about this as 14 and 24 hundredths divided by 0.3. How can I change a number within a fraction without changing the value? Well, if I multiply by the top and the bottom by the same number, I'm being fair. So if I have one decimal place, if I multiply by 10, 0.3 becomes 3. 14.24 will become 142.4. So basically what I'm doing is taking the decimal place, moving it over one spot. So up above here, now it become 142.4 divided by 3. So basically, in order to be fair, whatever I move, however many spaces I move the decimal place on the inside, I also need to do on the outside. The rest of the problem will follow the same with the numbers. So it would be 4, 7, 4, 6 repeated. Okay. If I had done the long division exactly like what I did here, ignoring where the decimal place is, but then I need to remember to take wherever the decimal place ended up, which in this case is here, I would just move it straight up. Okay. So however I move this decimal place over, so if I move it over one spot, this is the new space for the decimal place, and then I just move it right up. Same thing here. If I move it over one spot, I move it over one spot, and then just bring it straight up. So this is basically how you go about dividing by a decimal. What do I do with signs? Okay, the same rules apply. If I have a positive times a positive, I get a positive. If I have a negative times a negative, I get a positive. If they are different signs, positive times a negative is still going to be a negative times a positive is a negative. So, a really quick example, just to show you with signs. If I had negative 4/5 times, let's say 10/11, okay? Basically, I can just multiply like normal. So I'm going to simplify. 5 and 10 are both divisible by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 10 divided by 5 is 2. If I multiply across the numerator, 4 times 2 is 8. 1 times 11 is 11. So numerically, I get the answer 8/11. At the same token, I need to remember then to include my signs. Sorry, it's the bell. Okay? So this is going to be negative. This unwritten sign is a positive. I need to remember that a negative times a positive is a negative. So what you're going to probably want to do is work out a procedure for you. If you are going to be, you need to figure out, is it better to multiply the answers or the numbers first and then to remember to go back and look at signs? Or what you may want to do is before you even begin begin a problem, figure out, is my answer going to be positive or is it going to be negative? So what you can look at is say, okay, well, what's the signs? A negative times a positive? Well, I know my answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to put that sign right there as a reminder to myself that I'm not going to forget to do that. And then I can just multiply the numbers after that. So anyway, hopefully this has been helpful. We're going to be working on this for a couple days, and good luck.